comes to mind when you hear of a sea creature both feared and desired? There exists on Earth such a fish, the Atlantic bluefin tuna. An Atlantic bluefin tuna can grow to impossible size. The record stands at 678 kilograms, a silver titan pulled from Nova Scotia in 1979. In Tokyo, one fish can fetch a price higher than gold, its flesh auctioned in whispers of luxury and power. Yet with every passing decade, their numbers have thinned, hunted toward the edge of absence. But to begin, we must return to something smaller. You were born in the warm shallows of the Gulf of Mexico. At first, you were nothing more than a speck, drifting among thousands of other eggs caught in the tangle of seagrass. You were transparent, fragile, a wisp of life that could vanish at any moment, swallowed by a jellyfish or snapped up by some tiny predator. Most never survived the first day. You were one of the few, small beyond measure, yet carrying within you the blueprint of a giant. Your parents had long since gone, vanishing back into the endless open sea. There was no shelter here, no guardians. And so, in this moment, you were on your own, kid. Already larger mouths were searching for you. The first lesson was brutal but simple. Swim, feed, grow, or vanish. Weeks passed. You survived where others did not. Your body began to change. Muscles strengthened, fins stretched longer, scales hardened. Each week you pushed beyond your previous size. You grew from just a few millimeters at hatching to several centimeters within a few short weeks. With your sleek frame and unmatched speed, you began to hunt sardines and anchovies. In seconds, you could burst from stillness to 70 kilometers an hour. Your body was built as a perfect machine, designed for long migrations and explosive hunts. Unlike most fish, you were not bound by the temperature of the water. Hidden inside your flesh was a miraculous web of blood vessels called the rete mirabile, the wonderful net. It trapped heat, kept your muscles warm, and let you race faster than both prey and predator. Soon, you were no longer just another fish. By your first year, you had become a hunter. By now, your length had stretched well beyond your first fragile stage. While juveniles of your age could already exceed a meter, their weight climbing steadily into tens of kilograms. For the first time, you tasted what it meant to be not prey, but predator. And you were not alone. Around you, thousands of siblings joined in the Great Migration. Bluefin were born to travel. You crossed thousands of kilometers, through shifting currents of warm and cold, always moving with the rhythms of the ocean's food chain. From the Gulf of Mexico, you rode the Gulf Stream northward, feeding in the rich waters off New England and Canada. When prey fled into the deep, you dove hundreds of meters into the dark, and your warm muscles gave you the power to follow. You were young, strong, and tireless. For that moment, the sea was yours. But the surface above hid a new kind of predator, humans. They had watched you for centuries. In the Mediterranean, fishermen still practiced the almadraba, an ancient system of anchored nets that guided entire schools into labyrinths, ending in a violent harvest called the matanza. In the Atlantic, longliners stretched their main lines for miles. Hundreds of baited hooks dangled like deadly constellations in the water. Purse seiners swept around whole schools, drawing nets tight from below until escape was impossible. And on the open sea, men with heavy rods and reels, their boats bristling with sonar and spotter planes, sought you not just for food, but for glory. One day, you felt the temptation yourself. A sardine drifted oddly near the surface. You lunged, jaws closing around it, and suddenly agony exploded in your mouth. A hook! You thrashed, dove, turned, but the invisible tether held. At the surface, a rod bent, a reel screamed, and above the waves, a human grinned with adrenaline. For half an hour you fought, leaping into the air in an arc of silver, diving deep until your vision blurred. At last you were hauled beside the boat. If you were lucky, they cut the line and you sank back into the depths, scarred but alive. If not, a gaff drove home, and your story was redirected forever. Because to humans, you are not just a fish. You are treasure. In Tokyo's markets, your kind is weighed like gold. A single giant can fetch hundreds of thousands of dollars. Your flesh is not sold by weight alone, but by cut and by name. The deep red akami, lean and meaty, the backbone of sushi. The marbled chutoro, a balance of fat and flesh, melting on the tongue. And the pale, silken odoro, the holy grail of sushi chefs, once discarded as too fatty, now prized as the pinnacle of indulgence. When the knives descend, your body becomes a map of flavors, your life rewritten as luxury on porcelain plates. For many of your ancestors, this is where the story ends. They become legend, not in the ocean, but in the headlines. $1 million tuna, a record-breaking catch, a delicacy that feeds the hunger of the rich. The fate of giants is to be carved into pieces. And yet, there is more to tell. Because even as demand grew, your numbers fell. By the late 20th century, bluefin stocks had collapsed by more than 80%. Once abundant schools dwindled to scattered survivors. Conservationists raised the alarm. Without change, the most powerful fish in the sea would disappear. On a spring run back toward the Gulf, you noticed something you couldn't name: quiet. The boats that once raced to cut across your path idled at the edge of sight, and on the spawning grounds their lines stayed high. You didn't know the words season closure. You only knew that, for the first time in memory, the water around you felt a little less crowded. Some longline hulls wore small, blinking eyes, boxes that watched the decks and whispered to satellites, and there were days when fewer hooks sank to meet you. Slowly, painfully, the decline slowed. In some places, recovery even began. For the first time in decades, hope entered your story. Still, the dangers remain. Sometimes you caught sight of a pen drifting in the current, a cage of steel and net where cousins circled endlessly. You passed by, free but uneasy, sensing that freedom itself was becoming rare. Climate change warms the waters you need for spawning, altering the rhythms that guided your ancestors for millennia. Perhaps, though, the world has changed just enough. Chefs speak now of sustainability, of balance, of honoring the ocean rather than stripping it. Biologists tag and track you, not to kill but to understand, mapping migrations that span hemispheres. In laboratories, aquaculture experiments seek to raise your kind from egg to harvest without touching the wild. As for you, your own journey continues. Through shadows and light, following the currents etched in memory. But with each passing year, the waters around you grow emptier. Those companions who once cloaked the surface now linger only as scattered shadows. You have slowed. Your fins no longer carry the strength they once did. The colors that once blazed across your body are fading. In the silent depths of the deep blue, you wonder how many more seasons you can endure. Some say you are vanishing, leaving behind only memories and statistics. Others believe that somewhere, in the glow of a twilight current, a sharp silhouette still cleaves the water, flashing in the last light before sinking back into the abyss.